When a black stranger helps a child find his way, some watch with doubt, but the unexpected twist that follows shatters every assumption. It was a slow, sun-warmed afternoon in a quiet suburban neighborhood. The kind of day where time seemed to drift rather than move, where the air buzzed softly with the hum of lawnmowers, the chirp of crickets, and the distant laughter of children. Riding bikes down winding sidewalks, among the orderly houses with picket fences and neatly trimmed hedges, a small figure stood out of place, out of rhythm with the rest of the world. A boy, no more than 6 years old, walked alone down the sidewalk, his little sneakers scuffing softly against the pavement. In his right hand, he clutched a well-loved stuffed dinosaur, its fabric faded, one button eye barely hanging on. The toy dragged slightly behind him, its head bobbing with every hesitant step. His left hand occasionally rubbed at his eyes, though it did nothing to hide the tears beginning to pool there. He paused at a street corner, turning slowly in both directions. His head tilted, scanning the rows of similar-looking houses, each with cheerful flowers in the yard, mailboxes out front, and doorbells that probably sang when pressed. But none looked familiar. None looked like home. He took a small step forward, then stopped. His lip quivered, and his voice, small and cracking, broke the afternoon stillness. "Mama?" No answer, just the fluttering of leaves in the breeze, and the metallic creak of a wind chime on a porch nearby. He tried again, a little louder this time. "Mama, where are you?" Still nothing. The boy sniffled and rubbed his nose on the sleeve of his shirt. His dinosaur dragged through a puddle as he continued walking, slower now, like his feet were heavy with fear. He paused again at another corner, spinning around in place as if the world might reset and put him back where he started. Back where things made sense. Across the street, a woman watering her plants looked up and spotted him. Her brow furrowed, and she leaned slightly forward to get a better look. But after a brief moment, she turned back to her petunias, assuming, like many would, that the child's parents must be just around the corner, on another porch. An older man in a rocking chair squinted from behind a newspaper. He watched the boy stop, turn, and hesitate. He opened his mouth, but only for a second, then went back to reading. Surely someone was watching him. Kids don't just wander alone, right? The boy wandered further. His cheeks were streaked with tear trails now, and his little voice had grown hoarse. "Mommy," he whispered again, more to himself than to the empty sidewalk. A passing car slowed briefly as the driver looked out, saw the boy, then drove on without rolling down the window. The neighborhood continued its quiet, comfortable hum, the ordinary rhythm of an average day. But for this one child, everything was unraveling. His breaths came quicker now, shallow. Panic was creeping into his chest, rising like water. He clutched his stuffed dinosaur tighter, and still, no one came. It was one of those moments that most people see and forget. A child alone, yes, but not crying loudly enough to cause alarm, not running into the street, not screaming, just wandering. Quietly, invisibly. The sun climbed higher, casting long stretched shadows across the pavement as the boy shuffled further from where he'd begun. He paused beside a tree, resting against its trunk for a moment, as if the world was just too big to take another step. Another corner. Another look around. Another whisper. "Mama." And then silence again. Neighborhood, so full of life, somehow missed the quiet distress unfolding in plain sight, but not for long. The boy had just slumped down at the base of a tree, small shoulders trembling beneath a thin cotton t-shirt, when the wind shifted, carrying the sound of approaching footsteps. They were slow, steady, not rushed, not hesitant, just present. From the far end of the street, a man came into view. He walked with a quiet, grounded calm, each step firm, measured. Slung over one shoulder was a faded gray backpack. His clothes were simple, a soft worn t-shirt, loose-fitting pants, sneakers coated in the dust of long walks. His face, partially shadowed beneath a cap, was unreadable from a distance. He didn't seem to belong there, not in the manicured perfection of this suburban block. Not in the sameness of the neighbors, who all knew each other's names and routines. His presence was unfamiliar, and that alone made him invisible to some, and a curiosity to others. But he wasn't looking at the houses, or the parked cars, or the porches. He saw the boy. The child hadn't noticed him yet, his gaze still searching. The empty street, eyes red, cheeks streaked with drying tears. The man stopped about 10 feet away, his brow furrowed just slightly. He took in the scene, the way the child's hands clutched a limp stuffed dinosaur, the small shoes untied and scuffed, the frightened curve in his posture. Then, slowly, he crouched down. Not too close, not looming. Just enough to meet the child's eye level from a safe distance. "Hey there," the man said softly, his voice low and smooth like a breeze through trees. "You okay, little man? You look like you're far from home." The boy looked up abruptly, his body tensed, pulling the dinosaur tight to his chest as if it were armor. He scooted back slightly against the tree trunk, eyes wide and cautious. His little mind didn't know the man, but he knew what to be afraid of. He'd heard the warnings. Don't talk to strangers. Don't go anywhere with someone you don't know. The man saw the fear flash across his face. He stayed still, hands open, palms resting on his knees. His voice remained soft, gentle enough, not to scare a bird from a branch. "It's okay," he said again. "I'm not gonna hurt you. Just saw you sitting here all by yourself. Wanted to make sure you're all right." The boy looked at him for a long moment, as if studying his face for signs of danger. But the man didn't move. Didn't pressure. Didn't force a smile, either just waited. Eventually, the boy's lips parted. His voice came out small and cracked. I can't find my house." The words hung in the air, fragile and heavy. The man gave a small nod, his expression softening. "Okay," he said gently. "Thanks for telling me." The boy looked down again, blinking fast. His fingers kneaded the plush fabric of his toy. There was silence between them for a moment, thick, but not uncomfortable. Then the man slowly stood up, not abruptly, not with force. He adjusted the strap of his backpack and looked around. "Do you know your street name?" he asked, keeping his voice light. "Or what your house looks like?" The boy shook his head slowly. "I was playing, and then I saw a cat and I followed it. Then I didn't know where I was." The man let out a quiet chuckle, not mocking, just understanding. "That's easy to do, little man. Cats are tricky like that." The boy looked up at him again. His body was still curled in on itself, but his eyes no longer screamed panic. Just uncertainty. "What's your name?" the man asked gently. The boy hesitated. "Jacob." "Well, Jacob." The man crouched one more time and extended his hand, not too close, just within reach. "My name's Aaron. You want to walk with me? Maybe we can find someone who knows where you live." Jacob looked at the hand. He didn't take it, not yet, but he didn't pull away either. Aaron didn't press. Instead, he added, "We'll stay on the sidewalk. Won't go anywhere you don't want to go. And if we see someone you know, we stop. Deal?" Jacob gave the faintest nod. Aaron stood again and gestured down the path. "All right then, let's go find your home, kiddo." And so they began to walk side by side, a quiet pair moving slowly beneath the weight of a hot afternoon, under a sky that had watched it all unfold. From across the street, behind a curtain, a neighbor watched. Eyes narrowed, phone in hand, but Aaron didn't look back. He had a lost child beside him and a long road ahead. The boy had just slumped down at the base of a tree, small shoulders trembling beneath a thin cotton t-shirt, when the wind shifted, carrying the sound of approaching footsteps. They were slow, steady, not rushed, not hesitant, just present. From the far end of the street, a man came into view. He walked with a quiet, grounded calm, each step firm, measured. Slung over one shoulder was a faded gray backpack. His clothes were simple: a soft, worn t-shirt, loose-fitting pants, sneakers coated in the dust of long walks. His face, partially shadowed beneath a cap, was unreadable from a distance. He didn't seem to belong there, not in the manicured perfection of this suburban block. Not in the sameness of the neighbors who all knew each other's names and routines. His presence was unfamiliar, and that alone made him invisible to some ... and a curiosity to others. But he wasn't looking at the houses, or the parked cars, or the porches. He saw the boy. The child hadn't noticed him yet, his gaze still searching the empty street. Eyes red, cheeks streaked with drying tears. The man stopped about 10 feet away, his brow furrowed just slightly. He took in the scene, the way the child's hands clutched a limp stuffed dinosaur, the small shoes untied and scuffed, the frightened curve in his posture. Then, slowly he couched down, not too close, not looming, just enough to meet the child's eye level from a safe distance. "Hey, there," the man said softly, his voice low and smooth like a breeze through trees. "You okay, little man? You look like you're far from home." The boy looked up abruptly. His body tensed, pulling the dinosaur tight to his chest as if it were armor. He scooted back slightly against the tree trunk, eyes wide and cautious. His little mind didn't know the man, but he knew what to be afraid of. He'd heard the warnings. Don't talk to strangers. Don't go anywhere with someone you don't. No. The man saw the fear flash across his face. He stayed still, hands open, palms resting on his knees. His voice remained soft, gentle enough not to scare a bird from a branch. "It's okay," he said again. "I'm not gonna hurt you. Just saw you sitting here all by yourself. Wanted to make sure you're all right." The boy looked at him for a long moment, as if studying his face for signs of danger, but the man didn't move, didn't pressure, didn't force a smile, either just waited. Eventually, the boy's lips parted. His voice came out small and cracked. I can't find my house." The words hung in the air, fragile and heavy. The man gave a small nod, his expression softening. "Okay," he said gently. "Thanks for telling me." The boy looked down again, blinking fast. His fingers kneaded the plush fabric of his toy. There was silence between them for a moment, thick, but not uncomfortable. Then the man slowly stood up, not abruptly, not with force. He adjusted the strap of his backpack and looked around. "Do you know your street name?" he asked, keeping his voice light. "Or what your house looks like?" The boy shook his head slowly. "I was playing, and then I saw a cat and I followed it. Then I didn't know where I was." The man let out a quiet chuckle, not mocking, just understanding. "That's easy to do, little man. Cats are tricky like that." The boy looked up at him again. His body was still curled in on itself, but his eyes no longer screamed panic, just uncertainty. "What's your name?" the man asked gently. The boy hesitated. "Jacob." "Well, Jacob." The man crouched one more time and extended his hand, not too close, just within reach. "My name's Aaron. You want to walk with me? Maybe we can find someone who knows where you live." Jacob looked at the hand. He didn't take it, not yet, but he didn't pull away either. Aaron didn't press. Instead, he added, "We'll stay on the sidewalk. Won't go anywhere you don't want to go. And if we see someone you know, we stop. Deal?" Jacob gave the faintest nod. Aaron stood again and gestured down the path. "All right then. Let's go find your home, kiddo." And so they began to walk side by side, a quiet pair moving slowly beneath the weight of a hot afternoon, under a sky that had watched it all unfold. From across the street, behind a curtain, a neighbor watched. Eyes narrowed. Phone in hand, Jacob walked slowly, his small legs struggling to keep pace with the man beside him. The stuffed dinosaur bounced lightly against his side with each step, damp from the puddle earlier, but still clutched tightly. His head remained low, but his hand, now loosely wrapped around two of Aaron's fingers, spoke of trust beginning to take root. They walked in silence, the sound of their footsteps soft against the sidewalk, blending with the rhythmic rustle of leaves. In the breeze, the sun hung lower now, casting long shadows across trimmed lawns and driveways littered with scooters and chalk drawings. Across the street, behind a row of red tulips, a woman in a peach-colored blouse paused mid-watering her garden. Her brow creased slightly as she watched them approach. Her eyes narrowed not at the child, but at the man. Her hand hovered above the hose, forgotten. She turned toward her husband, who sat lazily on a porch swing, scrolling through his phone. You know that guy?" she asked under her breath. The man looked up briefly. "Nope," she frowned. "That kid doesn't look like he belongs to him," he shrugged. "Probably just helping him. I don't know." But the woman didn't look convinced. Her gaze lingered, hard and searching, on another block. Barely visible between a gap in the curtains, a shadow moved behind a window. The curtain twitched aside, just enough for one eye to peer out. An older woman with gray-streaked hair watched. The pair passed by with pursed lips. Her expression was unreadable, part concern, part suspicion. She didn't move from the window. She just stared. 3 houses down, a teenager sitting on a front stoop noticed the same thing. The boy was slouched, over his phone, earbuds in, but when he looked up and saw Aaron and Jacob walking, his posture changed. He leaned forward, then quietly lifted his phone and began recording. Not because he sensed danger, not because he wanted to help, but because something about the image, the unfamiliar black man walking with a white child who looked scared and tired, felt off to him, felt like a story, or maybe a TikTok. Something his followers might react to. He hit record. Aaron didn't have to look to know eyes were on him. He could feel it. The way silence stretched unnaturally thin across the street. The way conversation stopped the moment he and the child appeared. The way gazes followed their movement, but no one came forward to ask what was happening. It wasn't new to him. That subtle hum of judgment, unspoken, but loud. He kept his shoulders relaxed, his expression calm. He didn't rush, didn't shrink. But he also didn't let go of Jacob's hand. Still nothing looked familiar? He asked gently. Jacob shook his head, sniffling. "It's okay," Aaron said. "We'll keep walking. You're doing great." He guided the boy carefully around a crack in the sidewalk. Above them, a pair of wind chimes clinked lightly in the breeze. The air felt warm but heavy, thick with tension no one wanted to name. Behind them, the teen was still recording. The woman with the hose had resumed watering her plants, though her eyes kept flicking back and forth. A man inside his garage lowered the volume of his music, stepping out quietly just far enough to see what was happening down the street. Still, no one spoke. No one asked if the child needed help. No one called out to the man to ask if he was okay. No one offered anything but silent suspicion. Aaron had long grown familiar with this kind of quiet. The kind where fear didn't need to be loud. It lived in glances, in assumptions, in the space between what people saw and what they believed they saw. But he didn't let it touch him. His focus remained on the boy. "You hungry, Jacob?" he asked as they passed a small corner park. Jacob shrugged. "You like swings?" Aaron nodded toward the empty playground. The boy hesitated. "Kinda." "Well," Aaron smiled, "if we don't find your house by the next block, we'll take a break and try again. How's that sound?" Jacob looked up at him. There was the beginning of a smile forming at the corner of his lips. A little light breaking through the clouds of fear. Behind them, the camera kept rolling, but Aaron didn't turn around. His attention remained on the only thing that mattered, the little boy gripping his fingers, walking with quiet trust. And as the shadows lengthened and the whispers thickened, the man kept walking, unbothered, unshaken, unapologetically kind. But Aaron didn't look back. He had a lost child, Beside him, and a long road ahead. The sidewalk stretched ahead like a quiet puzzle, each street corner and mailbox offering hope, only to fold into another wrong turn. The boy's hand was still gently wrapped around Aaron's fingers, his grip small but steady, like he was holding on to something more than just a hand. They walked slowly, side by side. Jacob's steps dragged a little now, not out of fear, but from the exhaustion of uncertainty. His little face was flushed from the sun, and the dinosaur toy dangled lazily by his side, its stuffing slightly exposed from a seam at the neck. Aaron glanced down at him, giving a gentle nudge with his elbow. "You got a favorite ice cream?" "Flavor, Jacob?" Jacob looked up at him, surprised by the question. He blinked, thinking, "Strawberry. But only the one with the pieces in it." Aaron nodded, smiling. "That's the right answer. The one with the chunks. See, that's real strawberry, not that fake stuff." A tiny laugh escaped Jacob's lips, quick and shy, but real. Aaron saw it and smiled a little wider. They passed a cluster of mailboxes, each one identical, each lawn suspiciously perfect. Aaron gestured at the houses. "Any of these look like yours?" Jacob squinted, then shook his head slowly. "I don't think so. Ours has, a blue door, I think. And a tree, kind of twisty." Aaron hummed. "Twisty tree in blue. Door, got it." He paused, then asked gently, "Do you know the name of your street?" Jacob was quiet for a moment. Then, "It starts with an S, maybe ... sun ... something, or ... summer?" "All right," Aaron said. "We're getting warmer. Sun ... summer sandwich?" He teased. Jacob giggled. "New, not Sandwich Street." "You?" "Sure," Aaron said, playing along. "Because that would be an amazing street. I'd move there in a heartbeat." Jacob shook his head with a grin, the fear momentarily forgotten. They turned a corner and passed a small neighborhood park, empty except for a pair of birds hopping near the swing set. Jacob slowed his pace a little, staring at the slides. "Anything look familiar?" Aaron asked, gently encouraging. Jacob hesitated, then shook his head. "No, we don't go to that park." "Mommy says there's too many bees," Aaron chuckled. "Smart mom." They kept walking. A corner store came into view. Faded signage, cracked pavement, and a vending machine that had probably swallowed more dollars than it paid back. Aaron pointed at it. "You ever go there for snacks?" Jacob eyed the store, thoughtful. "No. Ours has a red roof and a bell on the door." Aaron gave a small nod. "Okay, not this one then." His tone never wavered. Calm, patient. He never made the boy feel wrong for not remembering. Never rushed him. Every answer was part of the process, even when it led nowhere. "You know your mom and dad's names?" Aaron asked as they crossed a quiet intersection. Mommy's name is Rachel. Daddy is, I think, Michael? Or Mitchell, something like that." Aaron smiled. "Both good names, could be either." Jacob looked up at him, more curious now. "Do you have kids?" Aaron paused for a second, eyes on the sidewalk. Then he said, "No, not yet." "Do you have a dinosaur?" Jacob asked seriously. Aaron grinned. "No, but if I did, I'd want one like yours." "Looks like he's been on some adventures." Jacob looked down proudly at his stuffed friend. "He has. He fought a bird once." "Wow, hope the bird's okay." Jacob laughed again, louder this time. The sound drifted between the quiet houses, warm and unexpected, like music carried on a breeze. A few heads peeked out from behind windows, still watching, still wondering. But Aaron didn't look up. His focus never strayed. He could feel the child settling, breathing easier, steps lighter, fear unwinding, slowly but surely. The walk had no map, no GPS, just clues scattered like breadcrumbs in a maze of sameness. White fences, identical hedges, too many cul-to-dash sacks. But they kept moving, step by step, question by question, one gentle word at a time. Aaron was building something invisible, a bridge between fear and safety, between stranger and protector, and though they hadn't found the boy's home yet, something else had already been found. Trust. The late afternoon sun had dipped lower in the sky, softening the edges of the neighborhood in golden light. Aaron and Jacob walked past yet another row of nearly identical houses, white sidings, clean driveways, bushes trimmed with surgical precision. A breeze rustled the trees, and a dog barked distantly behind a gate. Jacob had stopped talking. Not from fear, but from weariness. His small legs moved slower now, and his hand, though still in Aaron's, was looser, less tense. He looked up every now and then, scanning the homes, but nothing sparked recognition. Then came the sound, a low rolling hum that cut through the quiet, tires on pavement. A police cruiser. Aaron noticed it before Jacob did. The vehicle slowed as it approached them, then rolled to a full stop at the curb a few feet ahead. Jacob blinked, confused. Is that? Aaron gently squeezed his hand. Just stay close. The driver's side door opened with a mechanical click, and an officer stepped out. Mid-40s with a squared jaw and mirrored sunglasses that hid his eyes. One hand rested on his belt near his radio, not his weapon, but close enough to be read as caution. He said nothing at first, just observed. Aaron didn't move. His posture straightened just slightly, but not in challenge, in clarity. His hands were already in plain sight, held loosely at his sides, fingers spread enough to make a point. Afternoon, Aaron said calmly. The officer's eyes flicked between the man and the boy. We got a call, he said, voice flat. Suspicious man walking with a child. Description matches you. Jacob instinctively stepped closer to Aaron's leg, clutching his dinosaur tighter. Before Aaron could speak, the boy piped up, voice high and insistent. He's helping me. I got lost. He found me. The words spilled out fast, urgent. Jacob looked at the officer with wide, pleading eyes, as if terrified this moment might make his friend disappear. The officer looked at him for a beat, then reached for his radio. Dispatch. This is Unit 21. Got a possible match on that missing child report from earlier. White male, around 6 or 7, in blue shirt and green shorts. With an adult male, African American, mid-30s, gray backpack. Confirmed details? A crackle came through the radio. Affirmative. Missing child report filed by a Rachel Miller approximately 15 minutes ago. Last seen playing in front yard before wandering off. Subject matches description. The officer exhaled slowly, eyes now visible behind his lifted sunglasses. He looked at Jacob again, not just at him, but into the truth of his face. The tiredness, the dust on his knees, the subtle redness of dried tears. Then back to Aaron. Mind telling me your name, sir? Aaron Collins, he replied evenly. I saw him sitting alone by a tree a few blocks down. Didn't look like anyone was with him. I asked if he needed help. He said he couldn't find his house. The officer gave a small nod, though his stance remained cautious. You live around here? No, sir. I was walking through, visiting an old friend nearby. Was just passing through. The officer seemed to weigh this. He glanced at Jacob. Your mom's name is Rachel, right? He asked the boy. Jacob nodded quickly. And my house has a twisty tree. I told him that. The officer's expression softened for the first time. He reached back for his radio. Dispatch, we've got the child safe. We'll bring him in for reunification. A pause. Then, with a voice quieter than before, he looked back at Aaron. All right. Looks like you did the right thing. Aaron gave a polite nod. Just wanted to make sure he got home. The officer hesitated, as if unsure whether to thank him or lecture him. He settled on neither. Appreciate you keeping him calm, he said finally. As the officer opened the back door of the cruiser, Jacob turned to Aaron, suddenly panicked. Wait, are you coming with me? Aaron knelt down beside him, resting. A hand gently on his shoulder. No, buddy. But you're gonna be okay. The officer's gonna take you back to your mom. She's probably real worried. Jacob's lip quivered. Will I see you again? Aaron smiled softly, brushing the boy's hair back from his forehead. Maybe someday. But I want you to remember something, all right? Jacob nodded. You were really brave today. The boy threw his arms around him. Aaron hugged him back, tightly but briefly, and then he stood, stepping back as the officer guided Jacob into the car. The cruiser pulled away slowly. Aaron stood on the sidewalk, alone now, the breeze tugging at his shirt. Neighbors peeked from windows. Someone on the porch put their phone down, but Aaron didn't look around. He just watched until the car disappeared from view, and then turned to walk the opposite direction. The police cruiser pulled smoothly into the quiet cul-de-sac, where a small crowd had already begun to gather. A woman in a navy sundress stood in the driveway, her arms wrapped tightly around herself, her face pale and panicked. "Jacob!" She cried out before the car even came to a complete stop. The back door opened, and the small boy jumped out before the officer could even help him. "Mommy!" Rachel dropped to her knees as Jacob flew into her arms, his little stuffed dinosaur, flopping behind him like a cape. She held him tightly, her body trembling. Oh my God, baby, I was so scared," she whispered into his hair. Just behind her, a man stepped forward, mid-30s, tall, clean-cut. He wore a button-down shirt and loafers, the kind of polished ease that came from suburban comfort. His face was tense, but when he saw Jacob safe in his mother's arms, he let out a long breath of relief. "Thank you, officer," he said, shaking the cop's hand. "Really, thank you for finding him," the officer nodded. "I didn't find him, a good Samaritan did. Stayed with him, made sure he was safe." The man turned, confused. "Who?" The officer gestured behind him. Aaron stood a few paces back. On the sidewalk, his backpack slung over one shoulder, hands loose at his sides. His posture was calm, unassuming. Rachel followed her husband's gaze, her eyes landing on Aaron. She offered a small, hesitant nod, grateful, but guarded. Her husband took a step forward, squinting slightly, as if trying to place him. Aaron nodded back. Then, with a quiet, almost wistful tone, he said, "You haven't changed much, Ethan." Ethan paused, caught off guard. "I'm sorry, do we know each other?" Aaron offered a gentle, almost sad smile. "We went to school together. You used to call me by a name I won't repeat." The words landed like a stone dropped into still water. Ethan blinked, his brow furrowing. He studied Aaron's face more carefully now. And then recognition, a flicker of memory. High school hallways, a locker slammed shut. Laughter that wasn't kind. Names shouted across the cafeteria. A boy standing alone, the blood drained from Ethan's face. "Wait, are you?" Aaron gave a small nod. "Yeah, that was me." There was a long pause. Even the birds seemed to fall quiet. Ethan shifted uncomfortably, his mouth opening, then closing, words tangled between shame and surprise. I didn't know. I mean, back then I was just a stupid kid. I never thought. It's all right." Aaron interrupted gently. "I'm not here for that." Ethan looked down, his jaw tightening. "I was awful to you." I'm really sorry." Aaron shrugged lightly. "Life moved on. I just saw a scared kid who needed help. Didn't want him feeling the kind of fear I used to." He glanced at Jacob, who was now nestled safely in his mother's arms, already calming down. Ethan's eyes followed his, and something in him cracked, not from guilt alone, but from the quiet grace being shown to him. "You didn't have to do that," Ethan said. "I know," Aaron replied, "but someone should have." He looked back at Ethan one last time. No anger, no bitterness. Just a quiet kind of closure. Then he turned and began walking away. No fanfare. No Crowd clapping. Just the soft sound of his footsteps against the sidewalk. The same one he'd walked with Jacob, step by step, through fear, silence, suspicion. And now, something resembling peace, and behind him, in the driveway of the neat little house with the twisty tree and the blue front door, a father stood still, holding the weight of a past he couldn't undo, and the grace of a stranger who could have let it define him, but didn't. The neighborhood had always been quiet in the late afternoons, with only the occasional hum of a lawnmower or the distant bark of a dog to break the silence. But after the incident with Jacob and Aaron, the air buzzed with a different kind of energy, one tinged with curiosity, guilt, and something hopeful. The video had spread fast. What began as a shaky, whispered recording from someone's phone, hidden behind a curtain across the street, quickly found its way online. The footage was grainy and unsteady, but the story it told was undeniable. At first, the comments poured in with suspicion and caution. Who is that man? Why is he with the kid? Could be dangerous, one wrote. Always gotta watch out these days, said another. The comments mirrored the same judgment the neighbors had cast when they first saw Aaron approach the lost boy. But as the video played on, showing Aaron calmly crouching, talking softly, and walking gently with Jacob, the narrative began to shift. People noticed the kindness in Aaron's eyes, the patient way he asked questions, never rushing, never scolding. The way the boy slowly relaxed, even smiled, as Aaron cracked gentle jokes to ease his fear. What a relief to see a stranger helping a child instead of ignoring him. One viewer commented, real courage and kindness right there. Not all heroes wear badges or uniforms, wrote another. Even the woman who had initially recorded the video, the same woman who whispered suspiciously and passed judgment, felt a gnawing weight in her chest. She hesitated before posting an apology online. I'm sorry for my assumptions, she wrote, her words carrying the weight of sincere regret. I let fear and bias cloud my view. This man did exactly what I wish I had the courage to do. Her apology opened the floodgates for others to speak honestly. Neighbors, who had glanced out their windows and crossed their arms in judgment, began to reflect quietly on their own biases. Some admitted they had judged Aaron not by his actions, but by the color of his skin, the casual way he wore his clothes, the fact that he wasn't one of us. Mrs. Thompson, who lived 2 houses down, told a friend at the mailbox, I never thought about it until now. How quick I was to distrust someone just because he looked different. Mr. Hernandez, who often mowed his lawn on Sunday mornings, confessed, I saw the man walking with the boy and thought, why isn't he with his parents? But I didn't stop to think maybe he was helping. Small conversations began to ripple through the community, conversations about fear, judgment, and the importance of kindness. At the local cafe, the barista handed out free coffees with a smile and said, if we all took a moment to help like Aaron did, the world would be a better place. Children playing nearby overheard the adults and started asking questions, their innocent voices reminding everyone that trust and kindness weren't just ideals. They were lessons to be taught and lived. Slowly, the neighborhood began to heal. Not just from the scare of a lost child, but from the deeper wounds of suspicion and division. In parks and porches, people exchanged stories, some embarrassing, some painful, about times they had judged too quickly or missed chances to help, and amid it all, the story of the black stranger who helped a lost boy find his way home became a quiet symbol of change. It wasn't just about one act of kindness. It was about opening eyes, hearts and minds, and the community, once stunned by suspicion, was now moved by compassion. The sun was setting now, casting long amber shadows across the neighborhood streets. The quiet that had settled was different from before, softer, warmer, as if the air itself had absorbed the day's lessons. Aaron walked slowly along the familiar sidewalks, his steps unhurried. His backpack swung lightly with each stride, and the faint breeze tousled his hair. He wasn't in any rush to leave. There was something peaceful about this moment, the kind of calm that only comes after a storm has passed. The houses, the trees, the street signs, all once just backgrounds to a lost boy's search, now felt like silent witnesses to a story that had touched many hearts. Behind Aaron, somewhere not far away, Jacob was safely home, tucked into bed with his stuffed dinosaur. By his side, his mother had kissed his forehead, whispering promises to keep him close. His father, Ethan, sat quietly, thinking of the past and the unexpected kindness that had come his way. Across the community, life was resuming, but not quite the same. People carried a new awareness with them, a subtle shift in how they looked at strangers and each other. It was in the glance exchanged between neighbors, the thoughtful pause before passing judgment, the gentle nod given to someone who might once have been ignored. And deep in all of this, a quiet truth had taken root. Aaron paused on the corner, looking up at the fading sky streaked with hues of pink and gold. He breathed in the evening air, crisp and fragrant with the scent of blooming flowers and freshly cut grass. For a moment, his mind drifted back to the boy he had helped, the fragile trust that had blossomed between them in just a few short hours. He thought about the fear that had clouded Jacob's small face when he first saw a stranger approach. And he thought about the courage it took for that boy to place his hand in a man's. Someone unknown, someone different. Sometimes, heroes come wrapped in appearances that challenge our biases. Aaron's steps resumed, slow and steady, as the narrator's voice seemed to echo in the fading light, gentle but firm. Sometimes, heroes come wrapped in appearances that challenge our biases. The words hung in the air like a soft reminder, a truth waiting to be embraced. One man's kindness didn't just lead a child home. It led an entire community to look in the mirror. He turned a corner, the streetlights flickering on, one by one, casting pools of warm light on the pavement. Judge not by what you see, but by what people do. Because real character always shines through. The narrator's voice softened, carrying the weight of the day's lessons and the hope for tomorrow. Aaron stopped near a small park bench, where a few late walkers paused to enjoy the evening calm. A mother smiled at a passing child, a man tipped his hat to a stranger, and a group of teenagers laughed freely, unburdened by old fears. The community had begun to heal, not through grand gestures, but through countless small moments of kindness, of understanding, and of looking beyond appearances. Aaron glanced back once more at the neighborhood he had helped that day. In their eyes he saw the promise of change, the courage to confront old biases, and the willingness to grow. And as the stars began to twinkle above, shining through the twilight, he knew this story was not just about a lost boy or a stranger who helped him. It was about the power of kindness to transform hearts and break down walls. Because sometimes, the greatest journey is not the one that leads a child home, but the one that leads a community to see each other anew. Aaron's silhouette disappeared into the evening mist, leaving behind a world that was just a little kinder, a little braver, and a little more open. And that, the narrator concluded softly, was the true heroism that mattered most.